There we go.
Welcome. Hello.
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 Hey.
Not only do we have one, we've got 5 people. Okay. Cesar goes, yeah, we're bringing some people. This is what we're doing. Okay, it's me and these 4 other artists coming. And wait, we got a couple in Brazil, right? There's a couple in Brazil. Who's in Brazil? Raise your hand. Okay, we got 2 in Brazil. Is everyone else in Canada? Everyone's outside of Toronto.
Toronto.
Yeah.
Toronto.
Yeah.
Toronto. Okay.
Yes, sir.
All right. So multi-world. What do we call it? Multi-continent is probably what the words I should. You got to forgive me. It's been a couple days of the summit. It's been a couple days of the summit. You know what? You guys luck out. You're going to get the real bad jokes for me now because I'm just on. I'm just on ZBrush fumes. Is what we're doing right now. So, thank you for being here. We got an hour and a half with you guys because there's the 5 of you to cover what you want to do. So I thank you, Cesar. I know I reached out to you to help with this and everybody else to put this together as well in your team. And also the rest of you here, the 4 of you too as well. Thank you for doing this. And thank you for being part of this.
No, it's my pleasure. Yeah. And I like to echo what you said. It's absolutely awesome that we get to do this. And, a big thank you to Netflix and to the whole team at WeFX for helping us out. In the middle of production, scrambling, trying to gather everything. But also let me, a heartfelt congratulations on the 25 years. It's kind of unbelievable that it's been a quarter of a century.
You're longer than me in the community. Are you almost 25 years?
I'm about 24 years. Yeah.
Yeah.
So yeah, I wasn't there at the very beginning, but yeah, it's pretty insane.
Well, congrats to you. You guys all helped build this. To me, ZBrush is not something that we're doing. It's something we're all doing as a collective group of artists and people. And we're trying to make changes. We're trying to always do things. So hopefully everyone is enjoying what we've been doing and continuing to do. So you guys are all a major part of this too. So thank you for contributing and being part of it.
Yeah,
for sure.
Yeah.
All right. So now that we've got the crying stories out of it, let's see whose screen are we putting up first? Sam's? All right.
Yeah. Yep. So I'm just gonna basically, first of all, it's amazing to be here. Thank you for hosting this amazing event, and I'm very lucky to be amongst this amazing artist. I'm the VFX supervisor for this show for WeFX. So I've been working with unbelievably talented artists, and the 4 that we have here are just incredible people to work with. And I'm just going to start with just introducing who we are. Basically, WeFX is a company, pretty young company. It's been only like Cesar, is it 4 or 5 years now?
5 years.
5 years, unbelievable. And we've been basically working on various shows, from TV shows to feature films. Mostly we do, everything from visual effects for invisible effects to creature heavy effects and everything in between. And our team, led by Mogor Bankarimi and Amanda and Puya, which is the founders of the company, really are very artist-friendly team. And we're very lucky to work with them. They're supporters of good storytelling, and it's amazing to actually work with a team like this. Cesar and I have been, horror movie fans for ages. We love everything from movies to video games to anything that is in between. So we're, if you guys can just show our reel, that's going to show kind of like a scope of what we do. I'm going to let you guys play it.
right, let's go. Come
All
on.
right.
Let's do it. Yeah, it's so cool to see all those.
Great. Yeah, so we do pretty much every kind of visual effects you can imagine, and we love all kinds of effects, but really the creature is where it all started. Like, I mean, Cesar was brought in at the very beginning. Like, WeFX without Cesar wouldn't happen. So our focus was, and our love is to do as much creature work as we possibly can, and that's where ZBrush comes in. So yeah, I was the supervisor for Wednesday. Cesar, our supervisor for creature team, and we have our lovely 3 artists that were basically responsible for all the awesome things you're going to see. So we are bringing you a few things from Wednesday. Basically, what we did for Wednesday is around 185 shots. Our main thing for Wednesday was Thing. So we had a bunch of full CG Thing shots. We had some partial ones. We had a lot of insects, which we brought a few of them for you today. We had gore enhancements and a lot of invisible VFX. That's kind of the scope of what we did for Wednesday, season 2. And as most of you know, a show as big as Wednesday is not just one company. So we were one of the many vendors that were doing this, which meant some of the shots we did were shared shots. So we had shots that were kind of like split between other vendors as well. So I'm going to start with, basically, we had some critters and insects for this show. We had a tarantula, we had some caterpillars, some black and red small spiders, and an awesome moth. We're going to start off with our moth. Basically, the moth that we were doing for this show was kind of inspired by Death's Head moth, but it was pretty much like a fictional design. And we had some references from production. And by the way, this shot that you're seeing, this is also a shared shot. We didn't do the DMP, the digital matte painting on the background, but we did the moth. And you can see another shot here where the moth was basically animated and sort of rigged and went through simulation for the wing and all that. But we're going to show you the sculpt and the design of that from the beginning. So I'm going to stop this, and we're going to go to our moth presenter.
Yeah, just let me jump in for 1 second here.
Sure.
I'm going to be doing this from time to time as we're going along. Those things kind of pop into my head that I think are pertinent information and whatnot. And the way the 2 thoughts. The team, there's 2 important members of our team that aren't present here in the presentation. One of them is Amanda Hepner, and the other one is Riley Curie. And I want to give them a shout out because they were both very instrumental in helping us. And wherever pertinent, I'll bring up their name. And this is really important for me personally, and also for the company. There's a reason we're called We. And it's not just a supervisor up here talking, and we wanted everybody present because we want to give flowers to the artists, to the people that are in the trenches that are doing the actual heavy lifting. And that's a big part of why I joined the company. It's a big part of our philosophy. And so with that, let me hand it over to Brandon.
Thank you. Yeah, thanks, Sam. Thanks, Cesar. I will be showing you guys our corpse moth, as we called it. We might have called it by its proper scientific name, as we usually do with insects and animals. But as Sam mentioned, this was actually a purely fictional species of moth. And it's it's a relatively simple sculpt, but it's still, like, I guess, it's a small thing. There is a couple hero shots with it, but for the most part it was kind of far away from camera. And it's simple, but subtle, like, simple things can be really difficult in their, subtleties. It can be difficult to get the small, subtle things right. And I think we did with this one. I think I was really happy with how this one turned out in the end. It's always hard to tell before that final render, but yeah, this one was really cool.
Do you have the contact sheet with all the designs?
Yeah, for sure.
Why don't we start with what we received from the client and kind of take it through there?
Yeah, for sure. Good idea. Let me pull that up. So this is, first of all, I got the color on here because I am primarily a texture look dev artist. That's mostly what I do, but and I'll touch on that.
Don't yourself. He's an amazing sculptor.
Well, yeah, I mean, compared to these guys, that's not. But yeah, I'll touch on that a bit later. But thank you, Cesar. Yes, so let's start with the design that we got. So this is where we would begin with any asset, is the design. Sometimes we do designs, but this one was from the client side production team. So pretty cool, pretty nice looking. I don't know, Burton-esque moth that we've got here. But basically, it's our job to take this prop that they've made and kind of make it real, real in CG terms, I guess, but real, like anatomically speaking, and real enough that it could exist in the real world, or at least it could exist in the Wednesday universe.
So this is like a sculpted prop that you guys got? Is that what this is? There's someone from a
we only got images, Paul. So on set,
Yeah.
they made a physical. I believe they 3D printed it, right, Sam? A little.
This one is actually with felt, like it's very sort of old.
But the
school.
model itself, right, that they applied, I think it was a 3D print.
It might have been, yeah.
But yeah, they had it as reference for the actors,
Right.
so that they knew what they were looking at, type of thing.
Right. Yeah. Camera.
Yeah, exactly.
Camera. Yeah.
Okay. But as usual, when you create something, you don't necessarily think about it from a production standpoint, and you don't necessarily think about it in terms of movement, right? Just because something looks cool as a 2D thing, it doesn't necessarily translate into a 3D thing. So that was part of the challenge. So the initial challenge was taking this and then turning that into a 3D representation of that. But everything that we do is anatomy. You're going to hear me say this over and over again, and you're going to hear the guys talking about this over and over again. Everything that we do is anatomy. So the very first thing was to try to find out what genus was this. They based this off of something, right? And if they didn't, they must have been influenced by something. So it was our job to go and track that down.
Exactly. And somewhere, I don't know if it was them who told us or if it was us who came up, but we ended up saying the Luna moth, this moth here, was the one that this was going to be based off.
Mm-hmm.
And actually, I was digging through our files and I found, I think we did start with a very Luna moth-like model. But and yes, this does look like the right moth for this reference, but it doesn't. If you go back to the design, it's not really matching. So we ended up just doing our own thing, which was this, and but still, you could still obviously use this real life moth as reference for adding the actual anatomy, like Cesar said, the anatomical features such as these veins that are in the wings. They didn't necessarily show that or include that in the design itself, so we took it upon ourselves to add that. As you can see in the sculpt, we've got all the veins, and that's part of the challenge, is like, even though these veins don't totally match the color, they still need to be there, right? And in some cases, like in this other moth that we were kind of using as reference, the death's head moth, you can see that even this one has, I mean, they all moths have these veins because they're kind of like the skeleton of like an umbrella, right? Keeping the structural integrity. So the reason why we chose this one as our kind of secondary reference was because at some point along the line, we learned that, or I learned like kind of late, that this was supposed to be kind of a, you know, a face, a skull motif in the back there. And the Death's Head moth, which is pretty popular, I think, in pop culture and such, has a motif like that. Obviously, it's not as sharp, but you can see kind of a face in there. So this was our secondary reference, and as you can see, obviously we went pretty all out with the skull reference there. So
yeah, one of the cool things about that was when we added fur to this, how the fur would correlate with the color, which would ultimately either emphasize the look or it would detract from the look. And we found that if we went, because it's basically a Horseshack treatment, right? That's what you're looking at on the back of these things. And that if we went too artistic with it, it really wouldn't read. And so ultimately we just simplified it and turned it into a skull. Just make it a skull. You know, you get rid of all the fidelity in there. Let's really kind of focus in on, you know, the eyes, the nose, and that outside silhouette. And then once we added the fur in there, it really popped. So it was a cool moment when we got that to work.
Yeah, that's a good point. Is that in the end, you know, this would be covered in a groom, and you know, from a texture looked at point of view, it's like, yay, you know, I don't have to put as much effort into the texture but it's, I mean, that's not true. But in the end, you know, the look is being kind of driven by the fur that's going to be covering the whole thing, and the fur, the color of the groom is driven by the texture. So.
Did you guys happen to use fiber mesh to see some test runs in ZBrush to see how it looked like fur, or you guys kicked it to something else and did?
That would have been a great idea. I think we probably should have done that because as you can see from our early tests, like the face didn't come out at all.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, using fiber mesh and ZBrush, like that totally would have probably sped the process of landing on a final skull design.
So did you hand paint this, Brandon? Is that what you did? You did poly painting on the wings when you painted the moth itself?
Yeah, so I painted
this. Yeah,
I painted in a texture software, but this is a good example of something that totally 100% could have been done in ZBrush, because I didn't do any like projections or anything. I literally was just looking at the reference and just painting it. So, you know, it's a good example.
Keep in mind,
there's quite a bit of that Brandon had to come up with there, because there's two sets of wings here, right, Brandon? So if you rotate it and kind of hide one of them, we can showcase that. There's two sets of wings here. And this is what I mean about the mechanical component of this. So we needed to figure out like what is the color on all of these, you know, on both sides of these wings, right? There's a bunch of decisions that you have to make right away from the get-go, from a design standpoint when you're looking at it, in terms of, you know, is it a single-sided mesh? Is it a double-sided mesh? Or, you know, or do we have a texture on one side? Do we have a texture on both sides? These are all kind of like technical things that you need to kind of make up, and you know, in terms of solidify those decisions at the start. And then once you have that, then we have the 3D, you know, the 3D representation of that, where the majority of the fidelity that we ended up doing in terms of taking it from just basic. Can you go down to level 1 just to show them how low this stuff is? When you go down to, you know, the basic, the fidelity, everything that you're seeing, all the beauty, that's all ZBrush, right? But whether or not the function is there is something that we need to make those decisions right away from the get-go. So
yeah, for sure.
So
you
yeah,
gonna say something,
like
Sam?
even the tails on the back end there, like we discovered that when we started simulating the tails on the back end, they weren't giving us the results that we were expected, and then ultimately there was a design change, right? And in that design change, it's not like you can just take something and scale it down and then all of a sudden you're good to go. No, all you've done is squished it, right? So now we need to go back, redo the topology, reproject it, get it over. So again, that's where ZBrush is just absolutely invaluable, right? Because it just saves us so much time in terms of those cycles.
100%. Yeah. Sam, were you gonna say something?
Oh, I was just gonna say it's like, and also thinking about our pipeline, right? Like getting this into our pipeline with the fur and getting the fur to render with motion blur and all that. So we had to be aware of all those too, which meant a lot of testing back and forth, which was also made Brandon's and Creature team's job way harder to get that working, because dealing with fur and rendering it with motion blur is not easy. So that was also one of the factors in there. Also, Brandon, it would be great to zoom in and show all the detail of the legs and the head you did.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, there's
one of the big things that you know, in terms of what we're doing, the type of work we're doing, that we're discussing here, it's production work, right? It's so obviously we can sit down and we can sculpt, you know, willy-nilly and come up with really cool, fantastical things, and you know, and that's and you know, there's a ton of merit in doing that in terms of designs. But at the end of the day, what we're doing is we're doing designs that have to follow form, function, and then also work in a production pipeline. So the cycle that we generate within ZBrush, it can never be broken. I can't just do something linearly and then go on my timeline and drag it back and like undo. I need to be able to work in a way that allows us to be able to make changes instantly from a client standpoint to you know, to being able to turn this around and get it onto the floor. You know, we're a boutique company, right? We're not a huge, you know, we don't have 5,000 people working in our studio, and we don't work on one show at any given time. We work on multiple shows on any given time. So during the course of you know, a day, you know, one of our artists will potentially work through, you know, 3-4 different shows, you know, depending on what we have going at the time. So functionality is super important for us in terms of, you know, being able to turn things around and then iterate on them to allow that workflow.
Yeah, for sure. And maybe I'll just touch on how we kind of work on all of our assets here, which is using the layer system. Cesar always, you know, iterates that it's important to be procedural, I guess, or, you know, to be able to go back and change things, because, you know, we change our minds, the client changes their minds, like people, you know, you see it in shot and then you want something different. So just
our directors changing their mind. I've never heard of that. What are you talking about?
Never, not the director. Just
no, never.
Just us.
Never.
I mean,
we're laughing, everybody in the audience, because good luck. They always change their minds.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, that's the thing.
I think there's a natural transition here. If anybody has a question, otherwise, I think there's a natural transition. We're going to be hitting on a lot of very similar themes as we go through all of these assets, and I think there's a natural break here. But is there any kind of questions on this one before we do that?
I've been kind of throwing them a little bit as we're going. People are also asking about, let's see, people are actually having a side conversation about 3D printing this and what would need to be done to 3D print this. So you've got that going on in the chat, which again, obviously 3D print this, guys, 100%, you can 3D print anything. It's all about thickness. So you got tolerances and stuff. But that is not what they're doing, right? That's not their goal here, right? Like Cesar said, they're a production. They got to get into the show. They're not worried about that kind of idea. So that's things they don't need to worry about. Is what you guys are asking about the 3D printing itself.
Cool. So why don't we do that? Why don't we move over to model, Sam?
Sure. If you're good, yeah, you can show my screen. Okay, cool. we're going to go to our next lovely creature. This one is Mexican red-knee tarantula. This was a lot of fun. I'm going to play a few. Basically, you're going to see some passes of one of the shots we were doing. The story was one of the characters can bring, basically reanimate dead animals, right? So in this one, we had to basically bring this tarantula back to life, but they had actually the tarantulas on set that we had to match. So we had to basically make a sculpt and a creature that looked 100% like the one that they had. They had actually two on set. So the ones that it was in the sequence we had to match. So it's pretty furry. It would do some kind of extreme motions because it's sort of jumping back to life. So this was a pretty interesting build, as you're going to see soon. But one of the challenges was like Cesar going through basically the anatomy of this creature. As Cesar said, anatomy is king in what we do. And it's kind of mind-boggling the amount of things that we found out about the tarantulas, and especially this one, from everything about how their joints work and the hydraulics of their legs. And it's kind of amazing. And trying to figure that out. And while in the meantime, we had to figure out how it would roll over in sand and creating the sand simulation, which was a whole other topic of conversation. But overall, it was really like everything started from the build of this character, right? To sort of make this work and also withstand our extreme poses that we had to put this through, right? It is not just a walk cycle, not a run cycle. It's a more extreme kind of a action that it needed to support. And yeah, so I'm going to let you guys talk about the sculpt of this.
Man, the sand part just gives me an ulcer. The fact that you do that, I'm like, sweet, thanks. It's in sand, yay! Thank you. Right?
Yeah. Yeah, each frame of that might have taken more than 10 hours to render, but
yeah, that's crazy.
Yeah.
All right.
You kind of, real quick, if you don't mind me asking, you mentioned the anatomy being super unique to the spider. Like, what was so unique about a spider versus what you normally do?
Cesar, that's you.
Oh God, where to start? So it's so easy to not take into account the proper pivot points on the legs of a spider because there's fur on it. And if you don't, so why don't we zoom in on one of those spots, just one of those knees as an example.
Yeah, the ball joint is incredible.
Yeah. So you're going to see a little bit of this with in the presentation here. The biomechanics of it were so important because generally speaking, whenever we see spiders, they don't take into account the range of motion and where the pivot is coming from and what's happening to essentially the collapse. There's an accordion effect that's happening on the inside of that. Spiders are unique because essentially their skeleton is on the outside, not on the inside. So it's a hydraulic process, right? There's fluid that's essentially being, injected into the joints, and it makes them expand, and it gets sucked out, and it makes them contract, and it's a very cool mechanism. But each one of those exoskeleton plates, if you look at each one of those joints, there's a peak to like a pivot where the knuckles come together, and that peak is a hinge point. It allows the bend of the leg up, and it also allows the contraction of the leg down. And if you don't have that, if you have a straight line and you try to open and close that, essentially what you've got is in the computer intersecting geometry. If it's a separate piece, which ours was, or if it's a single piece, what you're going to get is a noodle effect of the joints. So it was really important that the biomechanism component of that actually function, and that it'll actually be the way it's supposed to be in terms of the movement, because we weren't just matching. So part of it was we didn't know what shots were going to be CG and what shots were going to be mid-frame pickups. We kind of had an idea, but we wanted to build it so that essentially it would go unnoticed. That was it's like an invisible effect, if you will, that you just accepted that it was a spider in there. So there was a lot of challenges on that front in terms of figuring all of that out. And from a sculpt standpoint, Mauda did an unbelievable job, because each one of those segments, there are so many plane changes. It looks like a tube, but there are so many plane changes on each one of those sections to make it actually be the spider. And then you also have to take into account fur versus volume. We couldn't shave a spider, so we had to like build it in a way that would allow us to essentially modify what the inside would be, so that once we added fur to it. So there was a lot of challenges. This was super fun to do. But yeah, Mauro, take it away.
Yeah, hello everyone. Yeah,
Hey.
for this one, it was kind of the opposite of the moth, because we have to match the spider that was in the series, which is this one that the client sent to us, and they had like a prop just as a scale reference. But then we go and search for as Cesar say, for the mechanics of the legs and even if we don't find the exactly tarantula, we always try to find something similar. Just as Cesar always says to us, is anatomy. So we try to make things as real as possible. So we work on rig and animation. Even as he was talking about the leg, we did something like this. We take into account the accordion effect. We've even sculpted this kind of ridges. So when he closes, we have that accordion.
Yeah, so that little thumbnail there next to him, that was like our initial test, where we basically grabbed the cylinder and we sculpted it to understand it, so that we could move it, do a quick little rig inside of ZBrush and move it and see like, oh, okay, now I understand how this functions, what the process is in there, right? And like Mauro mentioned, in terms of the arachnid family, there's a lot of similar traits within that. And so we were able to, even though we weren't able to find, one of the challenges that we had, that image that you can see that the spider's in a terrarium in a corner, so it's not like we had a nice flat orthographic image of a spider that we could figure out how long the legs were, what the size of we had to kind of reverse engineer it. And I mean, even from a scale standpoint, we went as far as building the actual terrarium, so that we had the volumetrics of the terrarium itself to then counter to figure out how big the spider was supposed to be, and one of the very first things that we did in terms of the sculpt was to quickly build something that we could get rigged. So it was very basic geometry just to get rigged, so that we could then get a pose of that, because it was really important for us to sculpt it within the pose and get everything to fit, and then reverse engineer that back out into, if you will, our bind pose, the neutral pose of the skeleton. So these are like the challenges that they kind of come out of left field, and you have to think quick on your feet. Like, okay, well, this isn't the most, it's not the most optimal way for doing this, but how do we do that? How do we get to the end goal?
Yeah, and we even use transpose master to position in the same pose as the spider to get the proportion. And even taking in account the size of the leg in relation without the fur. So you can go back to this pose and have the proper size of the legs and the thickness too.
There's something funny that happened while we were in production. We ended up finding out that, was it one of our animators, Sam, that had a spider?
Our comp artist.
Yeah.
She had a tarantula that she would send daily videos of for our reference, which was fun.
That's helpful, yeah.
But like again, from an anatomy standpoint, right? Like even the abdomen itself, right? If you look at all the plane changes that are happening on that abdomen, all of that has to be there so that those hind legs can actually close up and connect into the back, right? Like when I was working on this, the whole time I was thinking of our friend Eric, Paul, you know,
Eric Keller,
exactly,
yep.
So,
you have to, because he would be, that's not accurate.
Yeah. So we did do a cheat though. This little breastplate here, we ended up creating a little breastplate just because we knew we were gonna need some wiggle room on the inside there for the legs based off of the scrunching and the position. So we pulled that breastplate off to kind of hide if there was anything that wasn't. So we cheated a little bit.
Like the geometry collapsing on itself.
Exactly. Just in case, you know, so that you wouldn't see it. So we just created that as a separate thing. So it was a nice little cheat.
Because the legs are so close in this.
Yeah. So are they each point, is it one? So is the one, like, let's take one leg. Is it just one subtool and one mesh? Okay, so it's not. It's multiple meshes so you guys can animate it. Yeah. Even in the accordion part too, I'm assuming, as well as its own separate.
Yes.
In essence, subtool as well.
Yes.
Yeah. Yeah, we did forego. We discovered that based off of the range of motion, again, this is the cool thing about seeing it in context. Once you see it in context, we did forego actually doing the proper accordioning of that. We found that just by having it be a soft deform in there, that we would be able to get away with it and it would look like it was supposed to, you know, versus, I mean, you're in production, you're always trying to find, how do I make something look like it's supposed to? But is there a way that I can make this maybe a little bit faster, a little bit easier, or, you know, there's always challenges. There's always give and takes. Cool. Any more questions on this guy? If not, I think we'll head over to you.
I'll tell you this much: it sparked a lot of spider conversations and Tarantula conversations in the chat. They're talking about research. They're talking about a lot of things about spiders and tarantulas. You guys are smart.
Yeah, the one thing about that tarantula that was interesting was finding references for the belly, like, because it was supposed to be dead and on its back.
Yeah.
Every reference you find is
they're alive.
The top of it, right? So that was pretty cool. All right.
Did you start with Dynamesh when you were doing that one? So a question came through: did you sculpt a base Dynamesh first and then separate everything? When you, for example, the legs, did you start with them each separated?
We had a base mesh that we started.
I generated. I'm a bit of a hard ass when it comes to topology, so I generated that first and then handed it off.
Okay, right. Shall we move on to our next creature? So this one was based on a real caterpillar, which is a really beautiful species of caterpillar, but pretty tough to create because in this sequence, it is supposed to, these caterpillars were supposed to spell out letters of the alphabet. Again, this character has the mind control to basically bend these creatures to anything he wanted. And so the challenges were create something that looks realistic, but also it can be bent and also look correct with all those little tiny spicules that needed to be looking right. And the look that was a huge part of this as well to make this look right. But this is the one that we started as a reference from like a 3D print first, but also we had many references of the photos of this, which I'm going to let our artist demonstrate.
Is this
All
for
right.
your screen, Cesar?
This is Carlos.
Yeah,
Oh, yeah,
I'm
Carlos.
sharing.
This screen? This one or?
Yep.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah. You not show the model?
No,
We
it's
can't
showing
see
the
the model.
poly ZTL. Can you select the model?
Yeah. Let me share again.
Oh, this is my screen.
Yeah, yes.
You're showing my screen. That's why.
Okay.
There it is. There it is. Yeah.
So when we start, we receive, like some say, the model. This is from the set. They made a scan for us and send this reference. They have to follow this main reference for this model. So my first task is create a good topology, because with good topology I can sculpt better, and also rig and simulation animation can work with the model. So I did the topology. So in the first pass, I don't change the model. I just want have all the shape with the new topology. Then I start follow the reference, all the proportions and the body shape, and start work to fix better the anatomy. Right now I have all the loops aligned, follow the segments of the body. Also I have the shapes for all speckles. I try a lot today to learn this word. Google Drive, Google Translate help me, but I don't know if it's correct yet. Speckles.
Speckles.
It's more, yeah, it's more hard to say this word than sculpt the model. So after this, I always like to create a polypaint. So this is something that I have to do, because this really help us to work more smart and quick, because now I can separate any piece of this by color. So in the next stage, I start.
Sorry.
Yep.
Before you jump ahead, I just want to showcase one thing in terms of the topology. Can you jump back one?
Yep, sorry. Yep.
Just jump back one and turn on topology. So one
Yep.
thing that's really important for production is the reason we're able to polygroup the way we are, the way the reason everything is because we're kind of taking a mathematical approach to this. If you think about it, we're taking a very, like, here's the beginning of this segment, there's the end of this segment. If you look at the lines that drive through the spicules, by the way, are those kind of towers that you see. Those are the spicules. So if you look at each one of those bulbous ends there's a line that correlates to each one of them, and it's the same line that goes all the way through. So again, when we're building from a we're treating it almost like a mathematical. We're looking for precision, right? That precision is going to make rigging easier on the back end, because we need to have this thing basically squash and stretch. We need to have something that will, like, compress and go away from each other in terms of the anim. And so if we keep that, or in an organic way, in a structured way, we're going to be able to animate and rig that a hell of a lot easier. Around each one of the the legs, you can see that there's a contiguous edge that goes all the way around. These are important kind of production side factors, not necessarily from a design standpoint. From a design standpoint, if you go back to the original one and show the topology of like what we got, you don't need to care, right? If you're designing, if what you want is just to kind of create nice forms and whatnot, then obviously Dynamesh will allow you to do that. But from a production standpoint, I don't have control over that mesh, and I need to be able to have control over it. So yeah, but feel free to continue, Carlos. I just wanted to point out what they were looking at versus it just being clean.
So then I start, after this, we already start your publish. So it's part of your workflow. So when I publish this for the rig, and animation starts to make some test, and also to show the client. Then I start to work on some details.
So to get the going back again to topology, to get the topology, did you guys do hand topology, or did you start with ZBrush or tweak it? What did you guys do to get the topology that you wanted for this? Because I'm again another one of those
ZBrush and tweak. Yeah, this started with ZBrush because we needed that construct, right? It was too complex in terms of the forms. So ZBrush came in really handy here for us to be able to get that initial kind of basic construct that then allowed us to edit it.
Okay. So Carlos, did you like cut with slice maybe and make like poly grouping so then you would get perfect topology in between each one of those? Is that what you did?
Yes. Separate these, and then if not full align, I use the gizmo, right? And align.
Okay. Thank you.
No problem. So then I start create
the details.
Details just here. Okay.
That's how they breathe, by the way. Those little holes, which is very cool.
Where
that's something we learned.
Yeah.
Which
so
ones?
This is the first layer for details, right? Then we add more details here on the side.
Oh, cool. Really? Those little holes. That's how they breathe.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Wow.
Wow.
Nature, man. It's always giving us something new.
It finds a way.
I know, right? Again, someone's comment. I couldn't even imagine trying to animate this either. Like, you're an animator or something. Like, sweet, thanks. You gave us sand. You gave us tarantula. You gave us cat. You gave us 2 accordions. This is great.
Yeah. We had to use 2 of them to spell a few certain letters of the alphabet because one wouldn't bend that far.
Yeah. Okay.
Then I start to work on these sections. Because in this point, the look dev team already start to make some textures and shader test, and you see these sections are not working like we want. So I create a new layer. So this is something cool from the layer, because when you have layers, you have how to change the model without sculpt again, right? It's something like a procedural process. So you work just one time and have multiple options to change your model. So I can show you just quick. So if Cesar or the supervisor or Sam or the client asks to change this line, so I can come in here and just change to 0.5. And it'll be less, or I can increase, right? And now this will show difference between the separations.
And again, this is really like if you've ever seen any of my tutorials or any of my talks, I'm always talking about layers and the benefit of layers inside of ZBrush. They are unbelievable, and it still kind of boggles my mind why more people don't use them. But if you start with the intent, to allow yourself the cycle of history, and you put it in a layer, then you have access to that layer. All you need to do when you're working is to be cognizant of the state that you're trying to save. And as long as you're saving that state, like you don't want to have like a million layers because you're just going to bog down ZBrush. But but if you've gotten to a point where it's like, you're half an hour in and it's like, oh, this is kind of an important thing here. I like this, but I'm not sure if I want to keep it. Put it in a layer, because you can always turn it off. You can always turn it off. And the nice thing about layers is that you can override and you can combine, and there's all sorts of cool things that you can do. You're going to see here in a bit how we went about it for the spicules themselves. There was a very specific shape that we wanted and that we needed for the bulb, for the head of these things. So, but you're going to see that in a second here.
So a question came up for the little legs that you have. Did you happen to use any of the cloth brushes to put in those kind of wrinkling, or did you hand sculpt that yourself with particular other brushes?
That's pure talent, man.
Yeah,
that's Carlos flexing.
I sculpted.
So what brushes did you use? What brushes did you use? Do you remember to do there? Or is it
standard?
Just the standard brush?
Yeah.
All right, and some Dane standard, or just standard brush most of the time?
No, just the standard and the move. You can create this.
All the
I'm starting with the first ZBrush version, right? The HD tool. So I learned the sculpt just with standard move and clay. So for me, I think it was more easy to use this than try another brushes.
Okay, thank you.
So next step, I start working with the speckles. So I start to change the shape, because in the reference you can see it's more round, right? And iconic the shapes. So with layer I have control for all individual. So I have for the top side, for the left, and for the bottom part. So if I need, I can come here and just change. Right. Same
So this
for
is
the
really
shape.
important, because each one of the spicules at the end has a thorn, a crown of thorns, right?
Yeah,
like a don't touch type of bit. And we knew that we were going to be driving that star pattern outside. We weren't going to be doing that in here. But when we put that on, it changes the look. And so we needed, every time we would render it, it'd be like, we're not quite, it's not quite, or the bottle, the neck portion of it is a little bit too thin. The outside is a little bit too thick, so this gave us the ability to be able to drive them. And as you see them on a layer, we can drive the whole thing. And because each row is kind of independent of each other, we could, Sam could essentially say, you know what, the top ones I love, the middle ones here I want them to come out a little bit more, and I want them to be more rounded. The bottom ones I want to be, so instead of us having to go and like sculpt each one individually, we only had to do that. Well, you still have to do that once, but once you have that done, now we have the ability to go and change that, and it's literally just kind of dialing, a slider up and down.
It's just giving you flexibility, right?
To
make the adjustments, in your pipeline.
Yeah, and for the left, use another layer for adjust the size for the speckles.
Are you having speckle nightmares every night?
Yeah. Speckles. I train a lot today. Speckles.
Yeah. Today's word is speckles. Yeah. So someone was asking a question that probably any of you can, as a group, also answer. Do you have any tips on making a sculpt look real, to make it look from just being a sculpt to making it be a cinematic realism piece? That's what you guys are doing. You're trying to make it look real at the end of the day. Is there anything you do?
I'll do a quick answer, but Cesar, you take it to detail. Sculpt is the start of an asset looking real. We need to go through many departments and phases to get that from look dev to lighting to rendering to comp. All those steps play a role in making things look real, but without a proper real looking sculpt, none of that is possible. So
what I would say is sculpt is the foundation, which everything is built upon, right? So if the sculpt is bad, I don't think a good paint job can save it.
Nothing can save it. Yeah.
So our job is, again, anatomy, and what I try to stress is become enamored with the inside, not the outside. So I know that sculpting, especially because I see this a lot whenever I'm doing classes with new students that are new to ZBrush. They'll bring something in, they'll divide, and then start sculpting and putting texture on something, and then try to create form. Really what you want to do is you want to create form with almost no polygons, then go to the next and continue refining the forms, then go to the next. Really, detailing is the cherry on top. That's the last bit. You shouldn't be focused on the outside. Be enamored with what's on the inside, because the outside, to me, like that's the fun part, right? Like the joy, getting to do all the scales and all the stuff. That's fun. That's you put your headphones on and Zen moment and come up with really cool stuff. But if you can start and hone in on getting the anatomy right, and I think this is a great segue actually for us to move into Thing, because that was our challenge with Thing this season. So why don't we do that actually? Why don't I pin this, because part of this will come up when we're talking about Thing.
Whose screen do you want us to switch to?
That
Sam?
would be my screen. Yep.
Okay.
Awesome. So yeah, so Thing is basically the hero of the show for what we were trying to do. So we had an asset that was from another vendor from season 1, but we needed to update Thing to make it basically there was a new scar on it. Also, there was the story of Wednesday season 2 needed more focus on things. So we needed to basically improve on that asset in so many ways. So I'm just basically playing sort of a few passes of what we did, from getting some of the photogrammetry to getting the first pass sculpt and everything that sort of followed. Cesar, do you want to take this on while this plays?
Yeah, to kind of piggyback what Sam was mentioning. So in season 1, they did an unbelievable job. Let me just say that, Thing was incredible in season 1. But in season 2, he was more front and center. He became more of a character, more of an actor on the show. And so the asset that they sent to us, the starting point was Thing from season 1. But there were some challenges that we discovered right away in terms of the scars were slightly in a different spot from season 1. There were some new things that needed to be there. The range of motion stuff that we needed, like what we're seeing right now here, that's actually my hand that Sam and I went into the studio and we filmed some range of motion that allowed us to create exercises, if you will, for the hand. There were some challenges that we discovered in terms of, he's a severed hand. So it's not like some of the anatomical things that you would expect, like, the fact that you have an ulna, in your forearm and the radius, that's an anchoring point for your hand. So the mechanism of like function is very different when you don't have that on the back end that is creating that. But yet we needed to still treat it like there was a forearm. We needed to treat it like it was still attached to a forearm, so that we could get proper, movement in the wrists and whatnot. The things that you're seeing here, this is like a range of motion that we created, again, as an exercise for the thing in its running its function. Some of those earlier images that you saw, you can see in the upper right hand there, was a prop that they had on set that was kind of a lighting reference that they would use. So we got a scan of that, and that became like the starting point, so that we could wrap our hand to the the season 1 hand to that hand, and then we could start looking at the differences. So Carlos is going to kind of walk us through some of the challenges that we had with this, and then we'll, we can kind of expand, upon that.
One thing to add to that. One thing to add to what we needed to do was we decided to do the stitches as geometry. So in season 1, they were not. And that introduced a lot of realism, but also a lot of challenges, both for the sculpt and for the simulation and animation and so forth. This is what you see is like one of the shots that we were trying to problem solve with, basically like a CG thing doing its thing. And you will see like parts of the sculpt going through simulation, going through shot sculpt, doing correctives, and all that fun stuff that Carlos is going to show you.
The internet wants to know. The internet wants to know who's in the blue suit. Who's in the blue suit?
The blue suit. I think it's a known fact that you can find him on Instagram too. Victor Dorobantu. He's an amazing. So he's been showcasing this everywhere too. He's an artist, magician, actor. Yes, and he is great. So we had to to that point. Obviously, we needed to match to Victor's anatomy 100%, and that was very challenging. As Cesar said, we did a range of motion with Cesar's hand. We did a lot of tests with that. Then when we started to get the same tests from Victor, we found out that there's a lot of little things that we needed to change to match to that, both in the sculpt and in rigging and in animation and so forth.
And are you on set, Sam, during these shots? You and Cesar?
For these, I was not on set. So they were shooting in Europe, and the show's main supervisor is basically, so the show supervisor would be on set, and then Tom Turnbull is the show supervisor. He would basically get the material that we need, and then we start dealing with everything that they shoot, including some shots has motion capture. We get a lot of motion capture references for animation, and a lot of it is also hand animated. So there's a combination of everything involved there.
What was the last name for Victor again? Somebody was asking. What's his last name again?
I think it's Dorobantu.
Dorobantu. Okay.
I think, yes.
Okay. Thank you. Well, I'll try and find it. Carlos, go ahead.
Yeah.
Hey, so like Cesar and Sam say, we received these hands from the season 1, right? And all these reference from the set. So you have this hand, all image, all reference. This is from season 1, and this is the Victor hands. So have all the range of motion we work. Also, I can see all the details here, all the forms to match in the sculpture. So let me show this in high definition. Okay, so then push this. Oh boy. Oh yes. Okay. So we'll save this model from the season 1. So the first thing is we need to remove the scars and the stitches, right? Because now in the new season is different how the stitches and the scars are. So now I did a new one, right? I have a new cut here. Also, we have a difference between the stitches and the formed.
Yeah, so just to make clear, the way they applied the makeup in season 1 versus season 2 differed. So the position of where the scars were was the first kind of challenge that we had. Then we discovered that some days they weren't applying the makeup and they were actually drawing on the scars on the thing. And then we discovered that there was some challenges that we were going to have there that potentially we were going to have to address that. And then we discovered that there was a coloring difference as well in terms of how they were applying the makeup as well to Victor. So these were challenges for us in terms of us figuring out, like, okay, well, where was like that center scar as a beginning? Where was that center scar? And so, you know, Sam and I kind of had to look back at season 1 where he had gotten stabbed, and then we took our best shot in terms of like, okay, so based off of what we're seeing on screen, this is the logical place of where that scar should be. And then there was kind of a round of getting approval of that. For the coloring, we needed to know going in that we were going to have the flexibility to be able to match the color of any given day that they had done, so that if we were doing a mid-frame pickup or if we were doing something along those lines, that we could modify our ultimate look dev on the backside to be able to match those. So again, the planning from the get-go, right away from the beginning, these are the things that we have to think about in production, so that we can build with that in mind moving forward. So what Carlos has done here is essentially resculpt those scars that, you know, that we see in season 1, just in the new placement of them.
So after the next stage, I start change how the stitch will connect in the scars.
Yeah, so sorry to interrupt again.
Yeah.
That came from a conversation that we had during rounds, where we were talking about how in lighting, if we could put real, because this was, again, front and center hero, we knew that it had to hold up, right? Like if this is like a full hero shot of thing, it had to hold up, and it had to hold up that fidelity. So we knew that if we could get geometry stitching onto the hand, that we would get the added benefit of contact shadows and the you know, the underneath, if you will. Even though, you know, we use vectors versus displacements to get up and under, and you know, on our final render, you still don't get you know, where that trough is. I don't get the hole underneath, and light does bounce around and shadow does cool things, and so it's really important. It was kind of important for us. So, you know, we were given the okay, so we went ahead and removed those scars, and that was the initial pass that Carlos did, where he removed them and went in and you know, created each individual hole of where those scars, where those stitches would be.
So, and in this stage, I already can start export this for the rig chain and the animation to start test. So before I do this, I stop a little on the hands and start working anatomy, but now in bones and muscles to match on this. So I can come in here, push this transparency, so, or just show the bones. So you will have all the bones and muscles. Then start the detail part, right? So in this stage here, we create all details to match better we can to Victor hands, and we follow the best we can the real anatomy. For these details, Amanda create this drawing hand by hand in Mari, then send to me. I import here, and using the displacement here, I import the map and use to sculpt, right? And for this part here, I create some brushes and sculpt by hand, because this is something we always do here in studios. Anatomy is very important. So details is part of the anatomy, right? You can just drop the details in a model, because if you don't have if you don't follow the movement, right, form and function, you don't have you have start to have a noise, not a real details. So for example, I have this finger, right, and we know the finger go up, right, go down, go back, and go front. So you have a circular movement. So the details need to be something like this. So you have all details follow the movement of the hands. Same for here and the wrist, right? Every wrinkle is in the place. We have real movement, right? Same here, right? All details follow the movement for each finger, for each part of the skin. If not just something you get some brush and just paste here. No, you need to follow the movement, the muscles.
So surface directionality is a huge subject all on its own. You know, and understanding dynamic wrinkles in terms of how they're being generated, why they're being generated, what are the forces, you know, what's the epicenter of a wrinkle versus, you know, the echoes of a wrinkle. Those are all very important things, and they're a huge subject matter all on their own. Hands, by their very nature, are more complex than a human head. There are more plane changes on a hand than there are on a human face. And so, you know, I mean, there's a reason why people that are drawing, you know, learning how to draw, don't draw hands and feet. You know, they're hard. There's so much going on to that. There's major complexities, and you know, this is an ongoing thing with the guys. You know, every time we're working on something, it's a big part of our, you know, our focus in terms of, you know, is it real? Is this supposed to be there? What part is compressed? What part is stretched? You know, and understanding those things go a long way for you then to become. So yes, become enamored with detail, but at the right time. And by the way, those are not actually Victor's fingerprints. I want to make that clear. No, we cannot, you know, break into his account. You know, they're not his. Like, those are hand drawn. You know, I drove Amanda nuts for a week, where, you know, she sat there and drew every single one into a map that we could then take that map and project down onto the surface so that we could get the palm print and the fingerprints, and then blending that into the surface on the outside, on the back of the hand, and how to get that.
Okay, Carlos, show the fingerprints and the palm prints, Carlos. They're crazy detail.
Yeah, I think even the client kind of played with us and told us to stop showing off.
I'm sure she was looking at fingerprints like a ton, right?
Way too much.
Did them all by hand. That's crazy. Can you go really close to like the thumb, Carlos? Like,
yeah,
because this is some of the conversation that's coming up even in the chat. Thank you. There you go. So again, so there's some people that don't know what Mari is. So guys, she literally painted these. Each stroke is hand painted by her and Mari, and then brought it into ZBrush and applied that texture.
Yeah, and not only that, like, we looked at Victor's hands and we looked for surface scars, little cuts and nicks that he had, little protrusions, like, we introduced all of that stuff because, again, that's him, right? And it was really important that we try to emulate him as much as we, you know, at least from, you know, without you, like, being able to, you know, get his hand and compare it side by side, that you would just kind of buy that was him. You know.
That's awesome.
Yeah, and this is, again, an entire team, right?
Yep.
Yeah.
This is like Sam mentioned, right? Like, every single person present here today, and the ones that I mentioned, Riley and Amanda, everybody touched this at some point. this went through everybody's hands, you know, no pun intended. But we didn't stop there. We again, season 1 compared to season 2, as we were analyzing it and we were looking at you know, his knuckles and whatnot, we discovered that, you know, it wasn't quite right. It wasn't his hand yet. So we went and modified the knuckles so that we could get it closer to Victor.
Yeah, so this is before and after we did the adjustment is like this right now.
Everyone's doing this. I'm telling you right now. On the other end, I feel they're looking at their hands and going, "Okay." Yeah.
But that's exactly what we did for like months.
Oh my God,
months.
You know.
Yeah.
I can see everyone at
There
the
was
dinner table go, "What are you doing?" "I'm working."
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like
that's-
that bone on the wrist there that you see, this
Yeah.
little bony protrusion on
There he
the
is.
outside, that became a very big. You know, Sam reminded me the other day. It's been a while, and I had forgotten that. You know, one of the things that, again, that we had discovered. This is why we have the whole forearm there that you saw. That bone is really the anchor point, right? If you think of the mechanism in your arm, right, like that's the hinge point from your elbow to your wrist, and that's really the solid state, if you will, of your wrist. And it's the one thing that we could use to always know what the hand motion was supposed to be doing. So that became a very important part for us.
Go ahead, Ian. You were going to also jump in.
Yeah, there was a question a little bit earlier, but given the hand position, was this an ideal position for rigging for the animators, or did you have to change it ultimately once you were done with?
Great question. So, so if you think about something that needs to be animated, we want the most neutral position possible, because ultimately I need to be able to make the hand go this way and that way. And so if I only have my hand, if I put my hand this way, whereas, you know, it'd be very hard for me to go the other way. The other thing is I need to neutralize my compressions. I need to know where my compressions are. So by neutralizing all of that, I can put the wrinkle lines of where those compressions, and each one of those wrinkles essentially hooks up to the compression state of the hand when it's, I think you've got the pose, do you? Carlos? And you're muted.
The main pose, right? The classic.
Yeah, the main thing pose. Yeah. So the main thing pose. So each one of those creases, each one of those wrinkles corresponds to where one of these little folds are. Where you know. So yeah, that's a great question. It's you know, we had a lot of interesting challenges. His ring finger, from an anatomical standpoint, his ring finger is slightly offset. That's slightly in compared to where mine is, as an example, and that made some challenges for us in the posing. Like when we get it out, like into this pose, can you rotate the pose around, Carlos?
Yeah, the pose, yes.
Yeah, the pose itself.
Yeah.
To the other side.
Like this?
No, to the ring side. Yeah, there you go.
Wow.
So that distance right in there, that became a challenge for us in terms of like how far. So he's, you know, we're matching his performance, right? He's got very specific posing that he's doing. He's got a lot of very specific things that he's doing. So that, you know, again, it was our job to really match all of that, to get that, you know.
Wow,
It was a fun
phenomenal
project to work on.
Yeah, this is wild, guys. Like little things you wouldn't think about, like you said, with the wrinkles and the movement. So that's fantastic.
Yeah, and can you show the bottom side of that? Just show the inside of the palm.
Yeah.
In the pose. So all those little fatty pads, all of that compression, where is it stretching? Where is the overlap? Where is the, you know, all of that has to match again, you know. So it's, yeah, and
Speaking of little details that you were saying, Cesar mentioned that there were discrepancies between applying makeup day to day.
Mhm.
One of the things that we discovered was the thumb nail looked different from shot to shot or sequence to sequence. So I don't know, Carlos, if you have the 3 nails that you made for the thumb here. Basically, we had to create like 3 versions of the thumbnail that was chipped, a little more chipped, and kind of like healthy. So like little things like that basically was applied across the board, from look dev that we had to have different versions of the look dev to match to the day, to the different versions of the sculpt.
The details. That's crazy. I just want to also give you a time check for you guys. It's 8 minutes left too, in case you have other things you want to touch.
So I just want to show the two layers here. After all the anatomy and details are approved, the rig team and animation already start working, right? So they send us the ROM with the range of motion, right, for each movement, for the main movement for thing. So I have 2 here, so I want to show. Right, and I have the thumb.
Yeah, so the range of motion really allowed us to go in and not only now, and the reason we're able to, we're taking advantage of something that ZBrush does really well, right? And that's the higher level fidelity of projection. So if you step down, Carlos, to like level 1 to the base,
Okay.
And just turn on the topology.
Yeah.
This now allows us to go ahead and modify the base forms in terms of muscles, not detail. Where's the tendon? Where's the, and then we can go back up and allow ZBrush to project. So you can turn the topology back off and to project that information. So then now I can do muscles under the skin, flexing, I can do sliding, I can store a morph target and essentially move my, like if I do this, but I want the skin over here to slide in that direction, I can put it in that pose, store a morph target, pull that geometry, give it a little bit of a smooth, and then reproject. And then now my topology essentially is going to slide over the form. And so I can use that in my ROM. And we did this for, I don't even, 90 shapes? I can't even remember off the top of my head. It was a lot of shapes.
Yeah.
There was a lot of shapes that we did. And again, the whole team worked on this where, we took individual things, compared it to, again, that initial kind of movement that you saw in the video that I did, that gave information essentially on the client side for them to capture Victor doing that. So that then gave the animators the ability to, to have something to look at. It gave something for us in terms of poses for us to be able to look at and see what Victor was actually doing in terms of those. And then we could then sculpt that and again, make sure that we're hitting Victor's hand. We even there's another shot later on. I don't know if you all seen the show, but that they're attaching. They're showing. I think our first slide is that image of the. I don't want to spoil it. The bad guy, stitching thing onto himself, and we ended up just using. Is that a spoiler? I guess. Is it a spoiler?
Yeah, I think we'll just move on.
We ended up using
good.
the folded
you're good.
hand.
Yeah, you're fine. You're fine.
But it was, I mean, it's unbelievable the work that these guys did. I have the very best team in the world, And we, as an unbelievable company that allows us to do this sort of stuff, because most places would say, that's enough, that's good enough. And that's not the philosophy. The philosophy is push on every single level to make this absolutely the best we can while we have it in-house. And they are unbelievable. And I count myself blessed every single day, because everybody from the top to the bottom have bought into that idea, that philosophy. And it doesn't matter how scary it is, because it's not factory work what we do. Every single day it's a new challenge. We have to do some crazy thing that that we've never done before, and we have to figure it out. We have to come up with the solution and figure it out. And we, these guys, everybody that's here, they're amazing partners, in crime. And I'm very thankful for all of them and their patience with me. But I think the proof is in the pudding and the work.
Yeah. No, absolutely.
Yeah,
This
absolutely.
is really beautiful. So thank you guys for taking the time to break all these segments down. So spiders, caterpillars, butterflies, moths, hands. It's awesome.
Our pleasure.
Oh my.
Can I just say one thing about AI?
Okay.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
Just one thing about AI.
Sure.
Because I know there's a lot of fear about AI out there, and just amongst my circle of friends, and our community, and talking about AI and specifically, I obviously I don't want to encourage anybody to work in AI, and here's why. The short gains that you get from AI are going to hurt you in the long term in terms of knowledge, and it's really important that you learn the ins and outs of knowing how a skeleton is, become enamored with the inside, learn the inside and work your way out to the outside, and then become enamored with the outside, because it's all important. But really, the structure, it all starts inside. Remember, the first thing that we showed was the skeleton. That's the important part. It's the skeleton. What defines one person from another is the construct of the skeleton. Right? If you rip out my skeleton, I'm just a mound of gook. It's my skeleton that defines who I am and how I look. And then the muscles and how they function and why. And the one thing that I would say about the journey of learning anatomy is that the more you learn about how complex we are, the more you tend to love life, because you understand what an unbelievable thing we are. It's so amazing. And I want to encourage education. I want to encourage learning. And so don't be enamored by the bright lights of what AI promises you, because in the future, what I fear the most is that the talent pool that will reside in the future won't be able to do the work. So stay away.
Honestly, I love your take on that, 100%. So as an artist myself, I am all about learning, and yeah, I couldn't have said it better.
Yes, absolutely.
Any questions for us? Because I think we're kind of...
You were at the time. There was... okay, were the nails done separately, or did you have them sculpted in the hand? That came up a couple times.
Carlos?
The nails is one mesh with the hand. Is
One mesh,
together.
okay.
Yeah.
How many UDIMs do you guys have on the hand?
10.
10?
Yeah.
Okay. I think that's it. I think we got all the questions.
Yeah. Honestly, there was just a lot of, I myself was super just enthralled. So, and it seems the chat was also very much the same way. So, no, thank you again, guys, for coming on. And it's amazing to be able to talk to you about this stuff and how in depth everybody went. And like you said, you have an amazing team that works so hard to bring it all together. If you're going to hand hand sculpt fingerprints, hand texture fingerprints, you're dedicated.
I mean, for a project like this, if we don't have a team that everybody is so passionate and so good to work with, it would have been impossible. Like the amount of work and stress was crazy, but also we had so much fun doing it, and it was really great sharing it with you all.
Well, thank you for taking the time. I know for some of you are on the East Coast, some of you in Brazil, so it's later for you than it is for Ian and I being on the West Coast. So I can't appreciate enough you guys taking some evening and some time away from family on a Saturday. And again, for all the hard work you guys do to even get Netflix to give you the ability to show this to us. The community is huge. So thank you for all that. The back end, I know that's not easy. It's a lot to do. So Sam, Cesar, and everybody else was involved in that too. Thank you for working with Netflix to make this happen too. I was really excited when Cesar reached out to me. Yeah, that you guys were going to be able to show this. This is good. This is amazing, right? So I can't thank you enough. Really appreciate what you guys did today, sharing everything with us.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Have a good night.
All right. Have a great night, everybody. Thank you.
Enjoy the rest of the
Have a great
summit.
evening.